What's going on, guys? Savan, aka the Monkas. Join with me as my co-host, Reed, aka the Commish. This is episode 2 of Likely to Dispute, and we are excited to welcome our new addition to the program, Green Guy, aka Nate Peterman Support Group, the one, the only, Tyler Green. Welcome in to the program, buddy.
Hey, great to be here. You guys have each won ships in your own right, so I'm still seeking my first after, about a decade. So hopefully I'm here to learn from the best.
About a decade is accurate. Love to
Still
hear it.
has the most depressing championship loss in my brief fantasy career back in 2019 on Sleeper. Two fumbles costing you a championship by less than a point is as tough as it gets.
Yep. But, you know, we move on and ready to get that first one.
Okay, so today's episode, we will briefly go over here the big trade that went down involving Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rashee Rice, and then we're going to jump into an inaugural draft look back about a year later, looking at some of the best picks, the worst picks, analyzing the trades that went down, and then just general talk about the players and how they've changed since then. So should be a fun episode, and we'll jump into some trade talk here.
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh my God.
That's the that's the one I didn't do
So,
that
so,
one.
so I'm supposed to introduce my own trade here?
Yeah,
Okay, fine. In
we
this
can talk
trade,
about it.
I received Rashee Rice. I traded my 2026 first, the 204 from this year's draft, and then my third round pick next year as well. And those picks went to Schrader, along with two more picks from Cam Thorne. And he sent Amon-Ra St. Brown to Cam Thorne for Rashee and a second and a third. So two big names exchanged, a lot of picks, and I'm happy with my return.
From my point of view, it looks like you don't want any picks, which is fine. You can't win. You can't win with picks, especially future picks. But it kind of goes against your rule of not wanting any Chiefs, and especially not it being a redraft league and a dynasty league. That'll probably be tilting at points for you. But
It
Rice is a
will.
great player. And then from Schrader's point of view, him and Sumner to me are kind of like I just can't tell the direction that they're trying to go because you trade a guy like Amon-Ra, who is, I mean, he speaks for himself, but and then to on Camden's side, I mean, it doesn't change. He sucks. So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I disagree. I think Amon-Ra is quite a big step up, obviously, from
Yeah, no,
Rice.
no,
And
for sure.
I think
But
it gives some good firepower to Cam's squad there. And he also, you know, uh, gets draft capital as well at a 2026 third. So it's not like he entirely, gave up Rice and picks. He got a pick back as well, which kind of cushions the blow.
From my point of view, I Cam Thorne is the worst trade partner on the planet. This dude can't make a decision
Wow.
to save his life. But in the end of the day, it worked out. I don't know if he's a tough negotiator or he hates me or some combination, probably leaning towards that one. But we were talking about a trade for Rashee for over a month. I mean, he was on the trade block for a while. It was tough. He was giving me the business. But for me, like as Savan mentioned, for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm a big Chiefs fan, and I intentionally don't get Chiefs players because when the Chiefs score or the Chiefs are on offense, I just want to root for the Chiefs. I don't want to worry about who is scoring and when. But our good friend Rob Reed, way back sophomore year of college, so this would have been 2019, we were watching the Chiefs and the Chargers play in week two. The Chiefs were losing to Herbert, and he asked me if these games even matter anymore because you're going to make the playoffs anyway, and then it's just going to be going towards the Super Bowl. And really, that kind of ruined regular season football for the Chiefs for me because after that, I was like, this week three game doesn't matter. They're going to be there in January, and the season starts in January. So this is the first year I was really willing to let that go and acquire a Chiefs player. And for me, it was tough, but I really think Rashee is very good. Not that that's a controversial opinion. And I was willing to overpay in my pick capital to get that done because, as you can see, I like to build through my receivers. And I think this gives me a perfectly complete receiving core that I can then use my extra pieces to kind of shuffle around once we get closer to the season.
And honestly, when you say you overpaid, I actually do agree with that. And honestly, I'm pretty skeptical about Rice myself coming off that season-ending knee injury and Hollywood Brown returning to Kansas City. I mean, obviously Rice has been a stud, scoring, you know, about 15 points per game in the games he played last year. But I don't know. Knee injury might be a little scary,
Well,
but we'll see.
I've tracked all of his recovery, not just as a Chiefs fan, but now as somebody who was trying to acquire him. Andy Reid expects him to be 100% ready by camp in July, let alone September when the season starts. He just got cleared to run the full route tree. Everything should be online with his recovery. There was no ACL involved. It was just his LCL and some hamstring stuff. So injury wise, he should be fine. Suspension stuff has not moved forward at all from what I've seen. He could still play all this year and not get suspended, is what's looking like right now. So it was a risk I was willing to take. I'm not someone that typically is going to overpay. A lot of times I'd rather sit and just wait for a deal that works. But for me, I was willing to overpay because I think Rice is worth it at this point.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm 100% in on Rice. Hollywood, like if he's healthy, him being back to me honestly helps because then you have Hollywood and Xavier on the outside, and then Rice can just they just take the top off, and then Rice just eats in the middle and underneath, and then he's a yak guy, so he should be even better than he was to start the season, in my opinion. But
I think for him, Travis Kelce coming back is obviously a last hurrah thing. Like I think everybody understands this is probably going to be his last season. And I'm not saying there's not cause for worry. I mean, obviously, anytime you have a knee injury of that kind, it's going to be tough. But um, I have full confidence, and I hopefully it brings joy back to watching the Chiefs in the regular season for me. So I have something to root for other than them winning 14 or 15 games nonchalantly in a boring way.
yeah, Chiefs football is not fun to watch.
It's really not, but I think it'll get more exciting. Lots of offseason evaluation after they lost one game in the Super Bowl, and now the world's crumbling. So I think the Chiefs will be more exciting this year. So we'll see what they do in the draft.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we move on?
Let's.
Let's move on. All right. So now we're kind of going to run through the draft in a way of we're just going to kind of see what the best and worst picks were for a few rounds, and then kind of see where the value ended up being based on the inaugural draft and kind of like a hindsight type thing. So we can just
Uh,
start in
yeah,
round
no,
one.
yeah. I think before we start in round one, you can't talk about the inaugural draft without talking about the trade that went down for their very first pick. I remember when Savan told me that the 1-1 was about to get traded and he was not getting a first round pick back, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. There's no like this league's going to crumble because everyone's going to be stupid. But it ended up being a fantastic trade for both sides. I think Ian obviously came out with two quarterbacks, 1 and 2 in the MVP um, voting this year, and then on the other side, Sham's return was frankly ended up being great, and then ended up ending with a fourth pick as well in the upcoming draft. And it really ended up being a good trade for both sides that I couldn't believe was happening before the draft even started.
Yeah. I mean, if you want, I can read what the full trade was. Um, there was Fab included. Love to see it. Let's see. Ian ended up trading his first. Sorry, that's a lie. He ended up trading his second, fourth, and eighth in the inaugural draft, $25 in Fab, and he sent his 10. Hold on, what? I think it's backwards.
Have you ever used Sleeper before?
Yeah, but it says he sends his 104, but he didn't pick swap. He got both picks.
Is it 104 of the
Oh,
2025?
2025. Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad. Yeah, let's just move on.
Okay. I guess one thing to note though is when in this inaugural draft, I'm sure it was many of us our first time doing a draft like this, or less than 5 times maybe.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult, or at least I thought it was, to evaluate this, in draft trading. It's, what is a fourth round pick gonna look like when it gets there? And so for, this big trade to happen and both sides, like Reed said, have really solid returns, almost even returns, that's honestly pretty impressive. So
Yeah, I had the same thing. Like this is my very first Dynasty League. So to be able to not just evaluate these picks, but then you also add in the aspect of the rookie picks that were, a year away. I had no idea how to value any of it. And I had not discovered keep trade cut yet. So I was just kind of flying blind at that point. So, it's honestly that's why I was more conservative in a lot of my trades, like mostly just doing swaps as opposed to giving up assets for assets because I didn't really know how to value anything. It was all new to me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Originally, when thinking about trading future picks, they all just sound valuable if you've never done it before.
Hmm.
And then as time goes on, you realize if you're not in that top half of the first round, then you don't really have a guarantee in anything. So then I started shoving picks, and I'm happy and confident in my ability to find a diamond in the rough if I need to. So
I can't even imagine how much different I would feel if we did this draft now as opposed to last year. Like after
yeah,
having a year of doing Dynasty, feeling out how everything goes, but the strategy would be just completely different. Not necessarily just who I'm drafting, but like how I would approach trades, trading
yeah,
future assets, all that stuff would be completely different over the last like 8 months or so since we did it.
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Well,
So
that kicks off the
go
trade
ahead.
before the draft. So I'm just going to get into it. I feel like it needs to be said. If you look at the first round, I'm just going to start first round, worst pick of the first round. I don't think there's really anything to argue about.
I think there's a huge argument, actually, believe it or
No,
not,
it's
How
just
about say the pick and then
because you're wrong.
no. The pick. Well, first Reed traded up from 12 to 9 with basically just some pick swaps, a few pick swaps with Trent. He wanted to call a shot in getting a quarterback. That quarterback being Anthony Richardson. Um, you're going to argue Brock Purdy is a worse pick, I assume.
No, I'm not.
Um, okay, good because it's not.
I'm going to argue
Um,
Tyreek Hill was a worse pick.
yeah, no.
You
Anthony,
don't think Tyreek Hill was a worse pick than Anthony Richardson?
no, not,
You
and
are once again delusional about it.
it's not even close.
It's not even
Um,
close. So
not even
Tyreek
close.
Hill, as a 31-year-old wide receiver who's in trouble with the law again, finished last year
It got
as wide
dismissed.
receiver 18 and now is 31, and you're saying that's a worse pick than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and it's really not close.
How,
it's
how
either
is that not close? You are delusional again.
No, not at all. Anthony Richardson's the worst pick of the first round. That's how I feel. You can feel how you want.
at the time though, both picks are obviously defensible. Meaning Richardson has and had the upside, and Hill was obviously coming off a great year. But I actually might side with Reed here a little bit. I really am worried about Tyreek's situation this year, and I don't know how much value he has left. Where Richardson, you can still see a path, but it's not. I could see both sides.
Yeah, I mean, okay, what about you? I mean, is there any other player in the first round that can fit into this
I
worst
mean,
pick
well, when
other
you're
than
looking
those
at
two?
first round picks, like there's not a whole lot that can truly go wrong at that point. So, I mean, honestly, I think the second round was just as solid as the first round as far as the hit rate of the players. So, I mean, most of the first two rounds were pretty solid overall.
Yeah. What about looking back? What was the best pick in the first round?
I mean, drafting the best players available that ended up being the best players in the league. I don't think that's really a best pick. I
Yeah.
think it's more you hit what you were supposed to do.
For me, I put Lamar to the 104 just based on what was he, QB2 or QB1? One or the other.
One of the two.
He, yeah, he was QB1. And so being the fourth player off the board, Ian just really, I mean, he just had the best first round. There's nothing to really talk about there.
So if Lamar was the best value pick, some might say that you picking Patrick Mahomes was a worse pick than mine because you could have taken Lamar, but instead you took Pat, who has
Are
was
you
outside the top
arguing
10
with,
QBs
are
this
you
year.
arguing that Anthony Richardson was a better pick than Patrick Mahomes? Is that what you're arguing?
All I'm saying is look who went after
Is
Anthony
that what
Richardson.
you're arguing?
Brock Purdy, Tyreek Hill, and Breece Hall were the next three picks after that. The drop off from Anthony Richardson to the next three picks is not equivalent to the drop off of Patrick Mahomes to Lamar Jackson.
For the 2024 season.
Oh, so it extends beyond this year. So in other words, Anthony Richardson's career isn't over, some might say.
Okay, are you comparing Anthony Richardson's career to Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, they're pretty similar in their ability to dominate a football field, yes.
Okay, we're moving on.
I think that's best.
Yeah, I mean, just makes no sense.
Tune in
Uh,
October for Savant's apology pod when Anthony Richardson is a good quarterback this year.
yeah, we'll see on that one. Second round, um,
I love this round. I
second
think
It
round,
was fun.
I had Christian McCaffrey as the worst.
I I honestly don't know if you can assign a worst here. Like, I don't think there's a clear bad pick in this round.
I for me, like obviously, I think it's McCaffrey or Laporta. I figured out that I'm much lower on Laporta than consensus. Like
Hmm.
I believe on Keep Trade Cut, he's tight end three behind Bowers and McBride right now, pre NFL draft, and I just I just don't see that type of value for him. And especially, I can't remember, somebody said it in the chat with James being a Giants fan and taking him over Malik Neighbors, I thought was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, that was, I believe Ian said that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm still in on Laporta. I mean, being a tight end premium league
Hmm.
and just being able to get any type of volume seems to be, if you can have any type of volume, you can play on my fantasy team. That's the one position in our league that like I would say less than, or what, off the top of my head, probably less than half the league has tight end figured out.
Hmm.
So I'm in on Laporta, so I think that was a fine pick, especially at the time. Um, there's no really bad picks in this round. It's just Christian McCaffrey didn't play the whole season, so he kind of by default gets the worst for me.
Tyler, how do you feel about your Kyler Murray selection a year later?
Uh, I mean, it worked out pretty good. I think. I mean, I'm not too worried about Kyler this year, and part of my thinking at the time was, I had eyes for Trey McBride, and what do you know, I evidently traded for him in round four, so spoilers there, but um, I was excited to get K1. I kind of opposite to how you feel about Laporta Reed. I feel like I've always been a bit higher on Kyler than consensus, and maybe that's the baseball fan in me, being that he's former top five pick to the then at Oakland Athletics, but that's that. So feeling good about K1 this year.
Yeah,
Mm.
if I remember correctly, I believe I actually helped talk you into Kyler at that point.
Yeah, I actually think I was on the fence between him and Herbert,
Hmm.
which I mean Herbert is pretty solid too. I honestly, Herbert might even be a better bet this year than Kyler.
Which is kind of a good segue into the next trade that came up, which was Rob trading up to get Justin Herbert in that slot that was involved in that initial trade for 1-1. So Sham's first pick was actually his second round pick at 212. And then Rob traded up to get Justin Herbert, which turned out to be a very important pick for him, as now that is his only starting quarterback on his roster a year later.
Mm, that trade included Robert sending a 2024 11th and third, fourth, and 11th round pick and his 2026 second, receiving the second round pick that got him Justin Herbert, a 2024 ninth round pick, and a 2026 third round pick. So they basically swapped rounds in 2026. Rob got his quarterback, and Shams got
Uh,
some more trade
it's worth
perfect stuff.
noting that in that trade, he sent his fourth round pick in the draft, which Shams ended up using on Kyron Williams, who obviously was a very valuable piece for his team
Very.
which was
Um,
second in league
that
scoring last year.
wait. That was Ian's pick. He got Devontae Smith with Robert's
Sorry,
pick.
yes, good catch. Thank you.
Yep. But he ended up flipping Devontae Smith for Puka anyways. So, going back to the second round real quick, I think the obvious best pick in the round ended up being Shams at the 212,
Hmm.
being Jaden Daniels. Um, I promise, had Gibbs not made it to me at the 210, I was taking Jaden Daniels. I I hope Reed can vouch for me on this
I
one.
can, yes.
Okay, good. It's just the percentage of times that Gibbs fell to me at 210 doing mocks was like 1 out of 10 times. And so when that happened, I just couldn't pass it up. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, great value. He's a
That's
top, he's 1 or 2, I believe, on KTC.
Two.
Yeah, so that's a great pick.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the 13th quarterback off the board at
Hmm.
that pick, so
Yeah.
to get that kind of value there is pretty nutty.
Yeah. That's I mean, we did God knows how many mocks beforehand, and that's just the one thing you can't account for in mocks. Like you know who's supposed to be there and who isn't supposed to be there. But then when you have a real draft with humans drafting, and Christian McCaffrey goes around over ADP, and Tyreek Hill goes around over ADP, and
Hmm.
Jordan Love and Kyler Murray go before they're supposed to, like that just messes up everything. So that's one thing that as much as I love doing mock drafts, and we all love doing mock drafts, like the ability to shoot from the hip and go from like just make it up as you go is such an important skill that you can't get too locked in because then stuff hits the fan when good players are available and they're not necessarily in the position you were expecting to take.
Yeah, definitely.
But of course, Jamar Chase at the 2-1, the number 3 wide receiver taken, is now a top 3 pick in startup drafts. No one's going to
Definitely.
mention that, but of course, that was a great pick to make up for my poor first round pick.
I think one of his wide receiver counterparts, if we can move to round three, is right
Yep.
there with him and Malik Neighbors. And
Hmm.
I mean, Savon, that's got to be, you know, your your pride there, just picking Malik there. And when I think of your team, that's kind of who I think of as like that's Neighbors' team, you know?
Yeah. Pretty, from what I can remember, pretty much all off season in any single mock, I could draft him in any type of league.
Hmm.
Um, he was just I was just sold on him as a prospect, and then getting that draft capital and being the only, I guess if you want to count, who's that guy that caught a lot of balls but didn't get any yards on the Giants?
Wandale?
Wandale, yeah. Um, God, that one did feel good, especially where I got him. I was pretty confident I was going to take him, but I will say, had Jaden got back to the 303, I would have taken Jaden over Malik,
Or
sadly.
do you remember if you were above ADP on Neighbors when you drafted
I
him
was
there?
I was around ADP. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm
I
pretty sure I got him at past ADP.
I think his ADP was like the 212 or the 3-1, like he was right at
Yeah,
the turn. Because then James passed on him again to take
yeah,
Achane in the third, which again also not a bad pick, but Neighbors is probably a better pick. But
yeah.
and to kind of segue off that too, like I think it's worth noting that like all of the first 9 picks of the third round were like either good to great to like smash. Like the
Hmm.
most questionable pick in the first 9 picks was Tua, and like he would have been like quarterback. What Tyler would you say Jaden was?
Uh,
So
13th.
14.
So QB
Uh,
14, like for
yeah.
Tua, that's not bad value at all. And then Achan, Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Puka, Saquon, and then Drake London. Like those are 9. Like you don't have a second thought about how good those picks were. And then the last 3 picks were a little more dicey, but
Yeah.
really
Um,
just great hits on the start of the third.
going to back to Shams real quick. I do get why he had to double up on quarterbacks though, because Tua was at the time. Well, I guess Trevor and Dak were still there, but just with 212 being his first pick, and then he would have had to wait a whole 24 more
Mhm.
picks for another quarterback. There would have been it would have been JJ McCarthy, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, those type of guys. So I get why he had to do that. But then skipping to Travis Etienne, I get it at the time because he had just came off an RB3 season. But in hindsight, that was a terrible pick.
Yeah.
But
Is he your running back two to start the year this year?
oh, definitely. I'm in on Travis Etienne. If you just Brian Thomas was really the only thing they had going last year. They literally traded their starting left tackle in the middle of the season when Trevor got hurt. They had Mac Jones running the ship, and Doug Peterson seemed like he lost the locker room. So to me, with Liam Cohen, uh, I view Travis more like the Bucky Irving type. Um, so yeah, maybe I'll be right, maybe I'll be wrong.
Can you give us a Duval?
I was just going to ask that.
Duval.
That wasn't bad.
Nice.
That
Pretty
wasn't bad
good.
at all.
My eye was lower than the other.
No, ETN, I agree with what you said. Like looking back at it, not a great pick, but at the time, like I was completely fine with it. He would have been in consideration for my pick 2 picks later, but now, like I'm not going to get too much into the now out of, but like I really do like ETN at his current cost right now. But yeah, him and then Lawrence going back to back is not a great recipe after the Jags had the nightmare season they had last year.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So fourth round, first really the first run of tight ends I think is the most fun part of the round. Tyler,
Yeah.
you I don't did you trade for that pick?
I did trade
Yep.
up. This is Andrew Sumner's
Yeah.
spot, and I,
Traded up
yeah,
and got it was an interesting run because McBride is obviously a smash, hell of a
yeah,
player, now the highest paid tight end in NFL history. And then Kincaid to Schrader, who at the time was supposed to be Josh Allen's number one target, and then
mhm.
Brock Bowers immediately after that, 3 picks in a row to Trent. I mean, that's an incredible run of at least 2 of those 3 being smash picks. And Tyler, I know you're a big McBride guy, so
Yeah, big fan. Um, Colorado product and getting that stack with Kyler, it was a lot of fun to watch last year. Even, if McBride didn't have too many points going to the fourth, Cardinals down, Murray's looking McBride's way. So he's fun to watch catch passes. And, I've thought to myself, did I make a mistake passing on Bowers just because he was so generationally good? But I don't think that's fair to say to myself
hmm.
when they were just drafted so close to each other and both are absolute studs. So
Now if only Kyler looked his way in the red zone more often, he'd have had a touchdown before
that's
week
right.
15.
First touchdown was a fumble recovery.
Yep. Yeah. Then and then and then in the fourth round, I mean, there's just a ton of good receivers that went from Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Chris Olave, like, and of course, Savon's guy Rome Odunze, which for me was kind of a surprise pick. I wasn't taking him much in mocks, but a lot of receivers that went, and Goff was the only quarterback that went in the round. So overall, like a really kind of mixed bag, but a lot of hits with the tight ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in round four, we had that big 4-team trade.
Hmm.
I didn't go back and look to see what it was, but basically, I was expecting George Pickens to get back to me in the fifth round. So I wanted to double up on receiver and took Tank Dell. And then I got sniped by Shams with George Pickens. And then he ended up, um, Tyler, you were in this trade too, weren't you?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, then let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, you were in this trade, and then James was also in this trade. Um, Essentially, Jalen Waddle got moved. I got George Pickens. Shams got
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell and Jalen Waddle. Who did you get, Tyler?
I think I just got more picks.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
traded away Waddle and
Yep.
because I definitely stacked picks starting around 7 back. I got several picks.
Yeah. So that was the first 4-team trade I'd ever been seen pulled off right there before the season even started. So that was cool. Um, then we get into the fifth round. This is when you can questionable picks start being made. Swirly here going in with Kyle Pitts. Somebody had to do it. It
I
sucks that it was him.
I would be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about taking him had he gotten to my pick. I was really in. I was really mad that I didn't get Drake London in the third. He was like my number one target, and he ended up being great, but not because Kirk Cousins was great, which was the reason I was in on him. And then, yeah, Kyle Pitts is a tough beat, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't on the train still at that point.
Yeah. I guess a couple good picks, really good picks. I would say would have been Josh Jacobs and T. Higgins at the back of the fifth round. Ended up being or Josh Jacobs definitely outperformed. What was he? RB6. And then T. Higgins is just a solid dynasty wide receiver, especially with
Hmm.
him getting the extension now. I think he's still on Trent's team too.
He is, yes.
So
Yeah,
he's
the obviously the trade went down that round that Savon doesn't like to talk about.
oh, we can talk about it. I don't care.
Trent traded up from his slot at number 9 to Savon's slot at the third, and then Trent ended up giving him another seventh round pick in addition to that to move up to take Pacheco, who would have been there at his pick in the 9 slot, almost guaranteed. So questionable trade there, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so basically the trade broken down was Isaiah Pacheco for DK Metcalf and David Njoku. I'll take it. I don't even think Njoku's on my team anymore. I think I traded him.
Do you not know who's on your team?
I don't remember. I traded him basically for
He was in the Kincaid deal, wasn't he?
no, he was in the Swift deal.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I
Yep.
traded Tyrone Tracy, Njoku, and somebody else.
Yeah.
But
No. The fifth round was definitely a mixed bag, and the sixth round is, I think, the most mixed up bag. There are some absolute smashes in the sixth round.
oh yeah, this was a
Such a
really good
fun
round.
round. Yep. Rashee Rice at 6'12, Lad McConkey at 6'10. Ian's massive trade for Brian Thomas that I thought he was absolutely off as a rocker at the time to trade as much as he did to move up to get Brian Thomas at 6'8, JSN 6'7, and then James Cook at 6'1. Like those are all guys where it was just like clear smashes at this point looking back. But at the time, like I don't think we knew how special the sixth round was.
Yeah, and then we still got to wait and see on JJ McCarthy, but that could be a potentially
Same with
huge,
Jonathan Brooks there as
huge
well.
hit. Yeah, Jonathan Brooks, we're gonna have to wait a few years.
Jonathan Brooks. Okay. John, the whole draft, I was planning to break my Chiefs rule last year because Rashee Rice was so discounted because everybody thought he was going to get suspended. And every single mock I did, I was taking Rashee like a round and a half over ADP in this slot because I knew that was who I wanted. And then I take James Cook and I'm like, when am I ever going to take a running back again? Jonathan Brooks was supposed to be healthy for week 3 or 4 at that point. I talk myself into Brooks, hoping Rashee gets back to me. He doesn't. Jonathan Brooks, rip. But 2026 comeback tour is still on. That's the one pick that I probably regret the most. And the even more frustrating part is not only did I not take him there, but at 6'7", when Rob ended up taking JSN, he offered me a very reasonable trade to trade up there, and I declined it for some reason. And then I could have had, oh, that's my biggest regret is not
Yeah,
taking him in the Brooks slot or not taking Rob's deal for that 6'7" pick in which he wouldn't have got JSN at that point.
Still have
I,
Panthers stock with Chuba though.
Big fan of Chuba.
I will say Rice never would have made it back to you
Hmm.
because he was my plan instead of Jaden Reed. Um,
I was more
but
so
yeah,
just clean to hope that I didn't make a stupid decision and he would get back to me as opposed to actually thinking he would get back to me.
yeah. But really looking at the board now, like you fumbled the shit out of that pick.
Yeah, I
Like
did.
Brooks over, I mean, even Brooks over Addison, JSN, Brian
Hmm.
Thomas, Ladd. I would take Devontae, obviously, Kittle, Trey Benson.
Yeah.
Big Trey Benson guy.
I think I think Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson at 7-2 kind of kickstart this, next tier of
Mhm.
rookies at the time that aren't, neighbors or whoever, Marvin Harrison. And yeah, I don't have to get too much into it, but it just felt like there was several rookies here that were just
Hmm.
compared to some of these guys who've played a few seasons that they were just drafted really high, and it's easy to look at these rookies with, rose-colored glasses, but it doesn't always turn up sunshines and roses. So
Yeah, that's definitely something that I learned from this draft and then through the first season. Well, A, don't bet on injured players as I trade for Rashee Rice, but don't bet on something like Brooks where they said he was going to be ready, especially rookies when most of his rehab wasn't done with the Panthers. It was done at Texas or
Yeah.
with independent people. Like that was just a silly bet from the start that, again, probably a hindsight thing, but they felt very confident. They said that he'd be ready early in the season, and then it was week 10 before he debuted. And It was a mess, but yeah, I agree, Tyler. It kind of kicks off a weird spot, and then you look at round seven, and I don't think there was anybody I'd say which was an absolute smash from round seven.
That's a
Like,
lie.
okay, sorry, Henry and Kamara were both very good this year, but like as far as like the number of dynasty assets that are like cornerstone players in round six versus round seven is a huge drop off.
That's definitely true, but I mean, even I mean, this is your older players
Hmm.
like Kittle, Mike Evans, and Derrick Henry. They still did the things that they were drafted to do. So I would say those are the three good picks. And then you had your trade where I'm pretty sure I don't think we ever talked about this, but I'm pretty sure you knew I was going to take Ferguson.
I did.
Okay, so yeah, you traded up one pick ahead of me,
Hmm.
which ended up hurting you, I would
Well,
say, because Joku,
yep.
yeah, was better,
Well,
but he didn't
the
play much.
only reason I did it was because I had Dak, so I wanted this stack. Like I viewed Njoku as a little bit better than Ferg, but when I had the stack trading up, I literally just traded up 2 picks, and then in the next turn I traded down 2 picks. So I
Yeah,
didn't really cost me anything, and I ended up getting a stack that I wanted. So, I think Ferguson's a good bounce back candidate this year. But yeah, he definitely didn't pan out in 2024 at least.
yeah. Um, Skipping through this a little bit, I guess skipping one pick. Sumner getting Baker Mayfield actually was an elite pick for
Hmm.
being in the eighth round. Baker had a wonderful season being QB4, having his best season as a pro, throwing for 4,504 and 40. Uh, that ended up being a really good pick. So
Yeah.
props to you, Sumner.
Yeah, the eighth round was. I think the sixth round was the last round where it was like true cornerstone-esque players because the eighth round
Yeah,
is again you have more players who performed but necessarily aren't cornerstones. Like Godwin was great for me to start the year, then he got hurt. Stephon Diggs was great to start the year, then he got hurt. Mixon was great throughout the year for Tyler and still on the team. David
Yeah.
Montgomery was good, but a lot of these guys are older, so that there was a lot of value to be had in these rounds. You're just not finding the cornerstone players anymore, which is fine.
yeah.
It's not supposed to in the eighth round.
And I remember that Zamir White hype going into last
Hmm.
year. So rip Rob on that one.
It's always
Um,
one of those running backs every year.
There's
and then
always one of those guys.
if we want to get to it at 8-10 is where I had to because I didn't have a second quarterback and I bit
Hmm.
the bullet, put him on, I'm not going to name him, but I already named him earlier, but put him on the commissioner's exempt list. It
I was gonna
looks like he's
say,
on pace to get probably released in real life because the Browns
His
just
cap hits wild if he gets released, I'm pretty
I
sure.
know, but they just traded for Kenny Pickett. I know that's nothing, but they also signed Joe Flacco, and they're probably going to draft someone. So unless they roster four quarterbacks,
Joe
I
Flacco
don't.
is op number one for me. I love Joe Flacco, and then I came to hate him all of last year when people were saying he should start.
That's
It's too
that's
bad.
fair.
there's,
Um,
I did think you were, sorry, I wanted to just bring this up.
yep.
Uh, Making a commissioner's exempt list, hilarious, but also like, hell yeah. And the fact that you did that totally, no one picked this guy up. No one did, and he's just sat there since. So
Yeah,
I,
and
I
it,
love that. One of the best thing you guys did as commissioners.
yep, yeah. So one thing with that 8-10 pick, I'm just super against SA, and so it being in the first 3 weeks of the year, like just dropping him even though knowing it was going to hurt my dynasty team until it didn't when I played Reed and literally had no quarterbacks. And then Rattler and May get their first career starts, and I ended up beating him. But that's a great segue to get into
Wait.
the.
Sorry, but before we do that, while the commissioner's exempt list was awesome, I also think it's worth noting that you didn't care until it was clear he was not very good anymore. If this dude had put up 30 in week one, you weren't going to be dropping him. Let's be
I mean,
honest.
I mean, we'll literally never know. I think I cut him after
You caught him
week
after week
one.
one. Yeah, after week one. So if he had dropped 30 in week one, he wasn't getting dropped.
You, we'll literally never know.
We will never know. It's just my theory, I guess.
It'll literally. But that gets us into what might be the best pick from the ninth round on to the rest of the draft.
Hmm.
I doubled up on quarterbacks. Uh, I want to say May's ADP was in the sixth round, and there was a big gap where just no quarterbacks were getting taken. And I knew I was going to eventually need another one. So I took Drake May. It looks like he's going to be a franchise quarterback. Only time will tell. He's got a nice rushing floor, and they just added Stephon Diggs. They have a real coach. Uh, Sketchy offensive coordinator. I'm not a Josh McDaniels guy, but I guess it's better than I think Alex Van Pelt. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a huge gamble there. And like you said, I think you were right. Like a lot of the rookies and like those kind of wait and see guys like Penix and May, like they were in that like sixth to seventh round ADP, but everyone was just scared to take them, like myself
Mhm.
included. Like I didn't really want to worry about that, which is why I was like, okay, I'm gonna get my two quarterbacks out of the way early and not have to wait on a McCarthy or a May or someone like that. So obviously it worked out. So props to you for willing to do that, but that doesn't happen if you don't if you take Jaden Daniels at your second round pick. So things really fell your way going
Yeah.
down the draft there, and then you know it worked out for you now. But obviously, the other very important pick of the ninth round, Tyler getting maybe his franchise guy in Scary Terry, one of his
As in,
classic players.
I'm glad you brought him up. I was going to be remiss if we didn't at least mention him. One of my favorite players in the league, Terry McLaurin, number five wide receiver on the year. Um, he brought, I think there's something to be said about players that just bring consistency. They're not gonna, be 8 points or 30 points. Guys like Terry scoring, 14, 15, 16 every week. That does job. That pays the bills. So
And
I love.
I think the fun point to point out with Terry is like his stat line is identical to his past years. He just caught 13 touchdowns instead of five. And
Right.
that's obviously like what having a competent offense and a quarterback can do for him. Like it was clear, like he always had, like you said, he is as consistent as it gets between, 1,000 to 1,100 yards every year, but he would catch 4 or 5 touchdowns. He gets some touchdown luck and not luck per se, but he gets some touchdown variance in his favor, and now he's wide receiver four
Yeah, absolutely.
or seven.
The
Sorry.
and it's always fun, of course, always seeing, a team that's, kind of been down in the dumps for a while, like the Commanders, and to see them turn it around with Terry kind of helping lead that offense. Fun games to watch on Sunday with him.
hmm
Yeah.
And
And
then I
then,
think the last fun pick, Savan, do you have any thoughts on Jameson Williams?
okay, so I'm gonna be honest. Jameson Williams is in my top five most hated players in the league. I will give props where props is due, though. He had a very good season. This was
Did
part of a. This was
do you
part of
hate the person or the player or the package of everything?
a. The thing is, I think this was year three for him. He got traded up for 3 years ago. He missed half the season for injury, I think, and then the
He,
second
he he
year,
tore his ACL at Alabama, so they
yeah,
drafted him knowing he was hurt.
and then he did nothing. And then the second year he got suspended, and then he did nothing. And he plays for the Lions, who, if you're a Lions fan now, you weren't your whole life. So just the whole bandwagon aspect of like people being Lions fans. And on top of it, James is the one who drafted him. Or no. James traded for him because he's a bandwagon Lions fan. And so that made me hate him even more. But that gets us into our next trade, which was essentially the full trade was James got Jamison Williams, Bryce Young, and he traded Bo Nix and Troy Franklin and what turned out to be the 101. And that's when we were all clowning. Well, I was clowning him for basically trading a first round pick for Jamison Williams. Uh, and that turned into Ashton Genty. So shout out to you, Deshaun, which I basically got Deshaun Genty because in James's original trade, he didn't offer the 101. And when me and Deshaun were at work, he showed me, and I said, "No, get his first, not."
So in other words,
Uh,
you're taking credit for the deal, is what I'm hearing you say.
yeah, 100%. Because
This was
Deshaun came
there's
up
no
to me
Deshaun
like,
in this at all. It was all you.
no, he came up to me, he said, "I'm gonna accept this trade." I said, "Ask for his first," and he did. And then James said yes, and then the rest was history. And then
Okay,
that
good.
was the same day he had his flash sale.
Well, good. It's important that we get on record that Deshaun knows that you were the one negotiating his trade, so you can talk about that next time you're at work together.
He knows. He
Okay,
knows.
good. I just want to make sure we're on the same page there. So, okay, so I think that about wraps up the ninth round. So now we're kind of getting into some spottier picks or spottier rounds. We'll just go over one or two players from each round. Round 10, Bo Nix was taken, or sorry, nope, that's the 11th. Sorry. At the end of the round, three good picks in a row. Brian Robinson, James Conner for Tyler, finishing up the entire Cardinals offense after taking Murray, McBride, Benson. He had to finish up with Connor, and then Josh Downs to finish the round. So the rest of it, kind of a mixed bag. So
Tyler, do you have anything to say about a specific someone in the 10th round? Maybe
Uh,
maybe early 10th round?
I was a big Ben Sinnott fan. You sniped him from me, and I'm not losing sleep over it.
good.
Okay. Yet. Not losing sleep yet.
I don't think anyone ever will. Because you told me his McBride arc was starting last year and then it didn't.
We need
Yeah.
to.
No, I didn't.
I can post a screenshot of the text if you want
Yeah,
me to.
no, but that's what happened with McBride. He did nothing his first year,
Hmm.
and it was the second half of his second year, which we're getting into. And Zach Ertz was there both times.
Okay.
Read
So
the people have to know. Are you still after Josh Downs?
I will make it my mission if Camden K is listening to this, which I don't know if he listened to the first one or not. Josh Downs will be on my team by the start of the season. There's no doubt about it. Something will happen. You guys know me.
Commissioner Powers.
I am a numbers guy. When I watch Josh Downs play football, it makes me think that that's how a receiver should play. The guy is a baller, and I can promise you he will be on my team. You can book it.
yeah, he'll
He's
be. I agree. He has all the talent in the world. He's going to be a cardio king. He's just going to be putting routes on film because the ball's not going to be anywhere near him.
Hmm.
Um, at least for week one, and then once they establish that there's a real quarterback, there's a real Caucasian quarterback coming into play.
Wow.
Um, the ball's going to start flying.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is notorious for slinging the rock.
That he
Okay,
had that one year.
I just want everybody to know we're going to talk about Savon and I throughout the year do we just make bets with each other on normal things we'll argue about. And a lot of ours are focused on Anthony Richardson, if you couldn't tell. And one of the bets he agreed to me is that if Daniel Jones is not starting by week 4 for the Colts for non-injury related reasons, he is paying the buy-in for all of my fantasy leagues this year.
Or
That's how
vice
confident
versa.
he is that Anthony Richardson is that bad at football. So
Yes.
I just wanted to be out there that that's free money for me, and now I'm playing with house money in all my leagues this year.
Okay. Yes. Sure.
So
On all two leagues.
I have 3 leagues. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm not paying for all of them.
You're paying for our redraft league, this league, and the guillotine league.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So 11th round, Bo Nix, as we already talked about, an underrated one. Chase Brown ended up being an absolute stud for Ian down the stretch when his quarterbacks were carrying him. Chase Brown takes over the backfield after Zach Moss gets hurt, and then that ends up being massive for him and the back half of his season, pulling away, putting up a couple of really high scoring weeks, and we'll see if he's there to start this year, but ended up being a massive pick for him.
Yeah. Going into round 12, a bunch of quarterbacks. I would say three that are panning out with Michael Penix that Ian took that I now traded for. Tyler, I feel like this is huge
Hmm.
for him now, getting Justin Fields. I know at the time you never knew what 2025 was going to look like, but now that he's a starting quarterback elsewhere, and he even has Russell Wilson, who's a starting quarterback somewhere else, now he's got three quarterbacks instead of one. That was good. And then Geno Smith also is a fine QB2 or QB3 to have for Deshaun since he already has Caleb and Bo. Uh, Having the luxury to have a guy like Geno as as your three is awesome.
Another perhaps underrated one, Jerry Jeudy at 12-3, very quietly finished as the wide receiver 13 this year. So
Yeah.
if the Browns get any quarterback at all, well, we'll see if they take Travis Hunter. But Jerry Jeudy ended up paying out very well once Winston got put in there.
I was gonna say that's one of my favorite picks of the whole draft.
Hmm. But I mean, he's still only 26. So as much as
Yeah.
everybody hates him, bad rep from Denver. He got paid, and then he ended up putting up a great, at least back half of the year. But yeah, we'll see. He'll need him to pan out after trading Amon-Ra on this last trade.
Definitely.
Skimming through the 13th, just a couple guys to look at. Tyrone Tracy ended up having a solid year. I was super in on him in the offseason last year. Cortland Sutton was also another one from Trent. He ended up trading him for he
Nothing.
gave he gave Deshaun a fourth round pick and
For
Cortland
John
Sutton
Mechie, wasn't it?
for John
Yeah.
Mitch. He gave
Great
him a fourth
story.
round pick.
Hey, so we already established that Trent has some confusing trades, but despite the fact that he had confusing trades, he was on the doorstep of the playoffs last year, and now he has 4 picks in the first 4 rounds this year. So we'll
Yeah,
see what he does.
he's again, Trent. Here's your PSA. If you're listening, you have 8 picks. You don't need them. Trade them all.
I wouldn't trade them all, but
I would trade the 112.
no one
Um,
cares what your recommendations for his team are right now. You can text him on the side.
oh
We're
yeah,
talking about the
facts.
inaugural
Uh,
draft here, buddy.
Oh yeah, facts. My
I
bad.
Yeah,
think looking at why we get to go 14.
go for it.
14 was a stinker.
Except
Not
for the big boy,
Ray Davis.
Bucky
Go.
Bucky Irving. Come on,
Oh,
man.
my
and
bad.
and Khalil
He's
Shakir.
right in the middle of my screen. Completely missed it. Never mind.
The
I
the
take that back.
the Khalil Shakir pick haunts me because actually, I said it already, but literally only 2 times in my life have I ever been like, this guy is a baller. And the other one was Khalil Shakir. So I'm sitting there with my pick at 13-12. I'm looking at Roman Wilson, a rookie, on a team that had no quarterback at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this over Khalil Shakir. He's a rookie. He could be anything. He could even be Khalil Shakir. And I take him, and then I don't take Shakir. And then Shakir obviously has a very good year with Josh Allen, and Roman Wilson, I believe, had 1 target this year, and I don't even know if he'll make it off my taxi squad. Like, I hate it. Making
Yeah,
bad choices doesn't bother me. Making bad choices when I overthink it, that's when it bothers me.
Yeah.
yeah. Like you could have had Bucky and Shakir instead of Ty Chandler and Roman Wilson.
I was never going to take Bucky. I don't worry about that. Like, would have been a great pick. He wasn't on my list of guys to take. I was all in on Ty Chandler, but I wanted Shakir. I had him starred. I took him in a lot of drafts, and he was there, and I was just like, nah, let me
Yeah.
not take him. It was kicking myself over that one.
Now I think what Tyler called round 14 a stinker. Round 15
Yeah.
Hmm.
was a
That's
stinker,
what I meant.
except for Tucker Craft. I
Kinda.
I hate the Packers, but
Oh,
I'm very in on Tucker Craft this coming year.
J.K. Dobbins was solid too, but
Yeah,
Yeah, and
still
but
a free
let's give
agent.
Rob some credit for taking the
no,
dive and taking QJ. I mean,
no.
Quentin Johnston had some good games this year.
Oh, Jalen McMillan, I didn't see him.
So
Jalen
in other words,
McMillan
it
was a
wasn't a
good pick.
stinker.
Yeah,
It
yeah, no,
just
it wasn't.
there was no like absolute standout.
Hmm.
No. Then
Okay.
it's really just here and there. The next round, it looks like
Well,
I guess
Darnold.
Sam Darnold and Mooney. God, and Garendo.
And Rico Dowdle and Jacoby Myers.
Oh my goodness, that was a good round.
I think we're gonna do
Who's
that
the
for every round now.
who's the best pick in round 16? Go.
Isaac
It's
Garendo.
Darnold.
Darnell.
Oh,
Darnold. It's Darnold, then Mooney, and then
was
Garendo.
was JJ injured at the time? I can't remember. I don't.
No.
Okay.
He
So
didn't
yeah,
get he wasn't ruled out for the season until like all the way through the preseason.
it's a great value pick from Sandy there
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
J
Go ahead.
Jalen Coker and Chuba?
in round 17.
Yep.
Yeah. Jalen Coker's
Chuba.
an undrafted free agent. Hell of a
Yeah.
Yeah.
pick. We'll see
I,
if
I
he's any good
remember
this year.
Deshaun talking to me about him before we got to that pick. Like he's like, dude, I got the sleeper, Jalen Coker. I'm like, dude, if to me, if I've never heard of a player, they just can't possibly be good.
That makes a lot of sense.
And no, but he told me about him, and he looks like, I mean, he's better than Xavier Legette.
But he's less fun to listen to in an interview than
That's
Xavier
true.
Leggett.
But Chuba was awesome this year. That's a great pick.
I got that in a
Definitely.
great trade, by the way. It was right when Jonathan Brooks was supposed to take over, so I got him on the cheap. And he ended up being, you know, tearing
Yeah.
his ACL again. So it made my 6th round pick really smart because I made that trade.
Can we talk about my beloved real quick?
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman.
No, Gabe Davis.
Gabe Davis, the
Just,
podcast logo.
just looking at Gabe Davis for in round 15. Didn't take him. Didn't take him in 16. Felt like I need to take him 17. He's buns. My head tells me to cut him. My heart tells me I can't. So
Well, now that he's
here
on the
I am.
podcast logo, we might have to like give you an extra spot on the roster just to keep Gabe Davis and
That's what I'm
only
saying.
Gabe
He's in the
Davis.
captain spot.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Tyler's affiliation with Gabe Davis, because it wasn't in this league, in our redraft league, after Gabe Davis's big postseason game against the Chiefs, in that game in which they lost, by the way, when he had the 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, Tyler, I believe, overdrafted him in round 4 the next
Round
year,
4.
and it was not a good pick. And here he is getting paid more than Saquon Barkley, so maybe it was a smart choice. But yeah, so that's why he's on the podcast logo to represent Tyler, is
Yeah.
that draft pick.
Um, while you guys were talking, I just scanned through the last like 6 rounds and I found like 4 players left that were relevant,
Let's hear him.
and 3 of them just happened to be on my team.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, Jonnu Smith
Yep. But you dropped.
drafted,
Yes, but dropped, which I picked up off
drafted.
waivers. My tight end won, by the way,
Kareem Hunt ended
which you
up being
dropped.
good. Drafted, and Jordan Whittington had one good game.
So in other words, none of those guys are relevant at all, except for
I
one
No,
of them.
what do you mean?
John was
Jonnu,
the only relevant one there.
how is
Jonnu and
Kareem?
Kareem are relevant there.
Okay,
Whittington
Yeah,
is not.
that's fair. But
I'm just,
I think it's just like
and
a
then
lot of your sleepers where you say you're in on them, you take them and you drop them,
okay, as
and
long as I
then
draft him, that's all that matters.
I
Anyways,
don't think so.
Jameis Winston was the other one who, if I remember correctly, Sandy. Oh yeah, no, he had Hurts and Goff, but he's just a big Jameis guy. I don't know why he loves Jameis.
I'd say I have two more picks that I thought were relevant. Jordan Mason, the second pick of the 20th round,
Yes, definitely.
obviously was great for McCaffrey, got hurt. That's when Garendo came in, and then he was kind of off and on again. And now he's in a spot with the Vikings where he could end up providing quite a lot of value. And then the other one I had was Trent taking Cedric Tillman in the 24th round, which again, he ended up dropping, and I picked up later in the year, and then I believe traded back to Trent. Oh, sorry, Sandy took him, and then I traded to Trent later. But 24th round, I mean, he ended up having that great stretch in the middle of the year, and he's only 24 still. So those are the other two that I marked down for the back end of the draft.
I guess someone with potential in the 25th. AJ Barner, James took him. He's on Deshaun's team now. He showed a little bit of juice at the end of the season, literally the last game, but I think they just have Noah Fant, who's really, I think amount is the word to use. He's amount to nothing.
Amounted to nothing.
Yeah, sure, but I don't know. The Seahawks just have a lot of guys that operate close to the line of scrimmage now, so that's going to be interesting, and we're going to see if
Go ahead.
Darnold is a person.
The last one, I guess I noted, Alec Pierce, uh, to be the fifth to last pick in the draft, led the Colts in receiving this year, had over 800 yards. So again, for the literally the 25th or the eighth pick in the 25th round, that's not bad value that he ended up trading for a pick, I believe, to Sumner.
Yeah,
Can I
I
just
don't.
say this
Yeah, you're
is
good.
completely different note. Kyle Lauletta. I I don't even, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, so
22. I'd
the
never heard of him. Completely forgot he was even taken. Maybe I'm not a ball knower, but
no,
crazy pick there.
so what happened was, so remember we were in the time period where if we didn't make it to James by like 5 o'clock, we weren't going to be still drafting. So it was like the 20th round, and he told me he stopped. He didn't know who players were, and so that's why he took Frank Gore Jr. because he knows Frank Gore. And then Kyle Lauletta got drafted to the Giants like 6 years ago and hasn't been in the league for 4 years. Um, I think it just got to the point where he was just clicking buttons.
Okay.
So in other
Okay.
words, AJ Barner was like a needle in a haystack type pick.
It was just who's at the top of the ADP. Let me draft him and go to sleep.
That seems like it would have been a better choice than taking Kyle Lauletta at the 22nd round.
Yeah, probably. But Joe Flacco, honorable mention at
No,
23rd.
no, we're anti Joe Flacco now. He took starts from Richardson last year.
Oh yeah, didn't I start him against you too?
No, you picked him up, but I don't think you start. No, no, Ian tried to trade him to me for like a third round pick, and I was like, fuck off, man. I'm not taking Joe Flacco for a third round pick. So,
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
Well,
So, anybody else have any last notes here on the inaugural draft?
the only thing I'll say is just looking through my draft, I drafted really well.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
That's all for me.
Look at this fucking guy. I was so excited for this, and I had so much fun. I was always Savan can vouch for this. I was always opposed to dynasty leagues. Like I just like redraft
Yes.
leagues because to me the most fun part of the year was the draft. So when a dynasty league, when you don't have a draft every year, or like you have the rookie draft, but it's not, a draft. And I was like, well, it's going to take all the fun out of it. But I can confidently say that I was wrong. This draft was a hell of a lot of fun. And, not just that, but then continuing forward. I mean, the this was just a ton of fun, and I almost wish we could do it again. But obviously, this was a lot of fun. So we'll see if we have any more dynasty leagues here in the future.
Yeah. It's just it gives you something to do because there was always like that 5, 6 months of dead time
Hmm.
where it's just like there's literally no football. And now you can just like you text me and you'd be like, you actually know players in the draft now, at
Hmm.
least skill positions or whatever. And I don't know. This is just all fun to me. It's the only thing new about the off season. Like I've always like known players in the draft, but like now like seeing where people land and what implications it has, like players I like, hoping they don't go to teams I already have players on. It's all around more fun.
Hmm.
yeah, I don't have any other additional thoughts. That
What would
sums
you
it up
guys
for me
say
too.
your biggest regret is from the inaugural draft? Whether that be a pick or something you didn't do, what would you say your biggest regret is?
Mm, that's
I could speak on that. I regret kind of what I touched on earlier is how much stock I held in rookies. I feel like those rookies draft spots kind of get inflated just because, there's hope for what they could be. And so, like mentioned earlier, I took Trey Benson, I took Marshawn Lloyd, Javon Baker, um,
you think you
Jatavion Sander, and not that any of these guys are for sure busts or anything like that, just useful pieces around them were drafted in around those areas, and I definitely maybe would have switched up if
are you
I
saying you think you put too much stock into rookies?
yes.
Okay. It seems like you put stock into like later rookies though.
Yeah,
Like where there was
that's what I
art
mean.
like it was already we were kind of at the dart throw spot and that's when you started throwing darts at rookies.
I guess I just mean, and yeah, I mean round seven, Trey Benson, like that. I guess that's a big one I had in mind.
I would I promise you. Oh no, I wouldn't. I wasn't gonna take him
just,
there.
just, just tell me your regret, Monkas.
I I really don't have any other than
Can't say Deshaun Watson either.
that's the only thing I was gonna say is but I get what I was thinking at the time is he was the last quarterback that had really shown anything at all in their career that wasn't like 38 years old. So it was really just a shot in the dark that it would click again and he would not be a person. Um, other than that, I really liked my draft. I wish Shams didn't snipe me that many times, but
You had the Rashee stack, you'd be
yeah,
so
that
much more dangerous than like if you had taken like obviously you took Lad, which perfectly good pick. But if he would have got back to you in the seventh instead of Jaden Reed, that would have
yeah,
been a problem.
yeah, it would have been a good problem to have though.
What about you, Reed? Do you have one?
Uh, like I said, I regret the Jonathan Brooks pick. Not just that I took Jonathan Brooks, but that I abandoned the plan that I had that was still in place.
Hmm.
That was the frustrating part. And then, as I mentioned as well, taking Roman Wilson over Khalil Shakir when again I abandoned my plan, which bothers me. Then looking back at it, I mean, again, Roman Wilson not a complete bust yet because he has played like or he has like one target in his career, but that itself may make him a bust. So those are the two main ones. I do not regret the Anthony Richardson pick at all because as much on the field you can take it or leave it, whatever. But the fact that I'm able to be so invested in his career and his development, as I said, the regular season is really boring as a Chiefs fan. So like I've become very invested in the Colts and him. So I very much enjoyed the aspect of dynasty that it adds to my interest, even if his second year didn't go as well. I don't regret that pick at all, and I'm really happy that I was able to take someone that I can follow and root for. That's not an obvious good player. Like it's not fun rooting for Jamar Chase. Like yeah, obviously he's really good. He's going to do his thing, but like no one's gonna fight me on whether Jamar Chase is good. But you take
Yeah.
somebody like that, and it adds another element that just keeps me even more invested in football than I would have before,
You
Yeah.
live and die with Anthony Richardson.
to say the least. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up. That I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of fun. I think we should be able to have another one of these next year and see how these picks changed over the next year. But that's about it for me. So I think we're going to wrap up here. If you guys have any more comments, feel free to let us know in the chat or in the comments, and we will see you guys next week.
Later.